ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajaka Ashtotaras Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Okay. Welcome to all. Thank you very much for coming. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mahatmanobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatova Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sativam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lodita Sri Vishakam Vitamstra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanshako Patrubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevata Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you put your feet on that jacket, then they'll be warm.
Would you like a cushion or to sit on?
No, I'm okay, but yeah. Welcome again, especially welcome to Lakshmi Moni Mataji. I was thinking about you, nice to see you. And Purva and Kamalini. And all. Now, I'm thinking, and you can guide me a little bit. We started this Istagosti like a year ago or something like that, maybe more. And I wonder whether our Istagosti is running a little thin, whether we're when we started, we had a lot of questions. We had 80 people, and I wonder whether we might do better to be more shastrically focused on Thursday. And I was thinking of Chaitanya Charitamrta. I thought perhaps we might study Chaitanya Charitamrta together, or we might do a mixed format, sometime for Istagosti and sometime for Chaitanya Charitamrta. Or we can just continue with Istagosti. Does anyone have anything to say? I'm for CC, Panchatattva says. CC, Shraddha Devi says. CC, Meena Devi says. Yovi also. Venkatesh also. Surabhi Kunj also. Okay, the New York Times has already announced that CC has won. CC with discussion on important topics, Lakshmi Moni says. Okay, we can do that. That provides us flexibility. So that's that's what we're doing. We'll embark on CC today, unless there are any, if you want to vote against or express a contrary thought, jump in now. Otherwise, I think this is good. CC, yes, Tulsi Priya?
I'm all in favor of the CC, but I was also, one of the reasons I wanted to have a meeting with you is to discuss about expanding the Ishtagosti and, you know, seeing if you were interested in having, in drawing more people into it. So if you're still up for that, you know, if you're not against the Ishtagosti, then maybe we could, you know, have it more occasionally and not every week.
Yeah, I'm not against. Questions are welcome. So the way we have it now is CC, and if there are any questions that the group that anyone in the group wants to bring up, you can bring them to my attention or to, I guess, Tulsi Priya's attention, and we'll either deal with it on the you know, at once, or we'll schedule it. Good.
I had something, was prepared to go see tonight, but I see what's going on here, so. But I did have a question, something to be discussed.
Well, go ahead.
Well, it's philosophical more than, you know, like how to deal with this or that or the other thing, so. It's about the mantra.
About?
The mantra.
Uh-huh.
I've been thinking for a long time, trying to focus. The Hare Krishna part is fairly easy in one sense. I mean, Radha Krishna, it's fairly easy. But the Hare Rama part, I've heard it discussed before that it could, Rama could refer to many different aspects of the Lord. Balaram, Nityanandaram, Ramachandra, but that's so vague for me. I can't focus on, well, it's this one or it's that one, or maybe it's the other one. So I kind of have my own understanding now within the last few days of how to sharpen the focus on the Hare Rama part. But I was hoping for some discussion, so.
Okay. Certainly that's within the realm of reasonable discussion. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We do chant that quite a lot. You had and Apurva says even Radha Rama. Yes. So you had an understanding that you came to.
Well, I was looking at the Sad Bhuj. And so, you know, you have Lord Caitanya with the water pot and the sannyas danda. And then there's Krishna, the flute. And then you've got Lord Ramachandra with the bows and arrows. And I'm like, what's he doing in there? You know, how does this fit with the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mood of separation? So I was kind of working on that for a while. And then I was thinking about Ram Leela, and there's so much separation in Ram Leela. Sita Ram is such a heart-wrenching pastime. So I'm finding it easier to focus on Hare Ram being Sita Ram, Hare Krishna, Radha Krishna, Hare Ram, Sita Ram, because of the mood of separation and because of seeing the six-armed form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, but that's just something I'm thinking about. Nothing's fixed in stone for me ever, practically. So I was hoping for some discussion.
Okay, this is Chaitanya Caritamrta question, now that you've brought in Sadbhuj. Well, as we know, the Rama can refer to Lord Ramchandra, it can refer to Balaram, it can refer to Krishna. Krishna is also Rama, Radha Raman. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So it can be, and even for that matter, Hari can also be a call to Krishna. There's grammatically, it can either be to Srimati Radharani or to Krishna. So there's a lot of, what would you say, room there. In fact, there's unlimited space in the Maha Mantra. The first thing that strikes me is that we don't really need to think so much. The Prabhupada said, just chant, just chant and hear. And so it's not like a prerequisite that when we sit down and chant, we have to have a picture in my mind. Now I'm supposed to think of Ramchandra, or I'm supposed to think of Balaram, or I'm supposed to think of what have you. But just we have to chant. Chant and hear, and Krishna will reveal everything. And then you have your choice, like Prabhupada, when he was challenged by the Ram Bhaktas, that, but why not, I don't see the picture of Ram. Prabhupada said, but the name is there. So if you're a Ram Bhakta, then this mantra is for you. Krishna, Ram and Sita Ram are included. Or if your mind turns toward Balaram, then Balaram, Nityananda Prabhu is identical, is also included. Or you just want to think of Radha Krishna, that you can think of. Or you want to think of Sadbhuj Murti, or you want to think of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're all included in the Maha Mantra. We don't have to, what's the word? Fix a meditation that now I'm going to sit down and my mind is going to be on this picture or that picture. They're all included. Advaita Machuta Manadim Anantarupam. All the forms of the Lord are included in Krishna. Someone else would like to offer some thought?
Question? Maharaj?
Yes.
Is the idea that if we simply chant and hear, my brain is not working as well as it could right now. The idea is that at some point as we become purified, then the form and the pastimes and everything sort of manifest automatically in the heart, that we don't have to make the endeavor to think about them, but they sort of blossom, so to speak, as a result of pure hearing and chanting. Is that a correct understanding? You're muted, Maharaj.
Yeah. If you're in the wrong place all day, it doesn't work. Yes, and let me get my hand. How do I get my hand down? You may have to live with my hand up for a while.
It's in the reactions tab.
Reaction tab. There is no reaction tab on my computer.
Down below at the bottom where it says
Oh,
chat.
reaction. Okay, lower hand, thank you. Okay, yes, and that was explained. I was just reading it the other day. Where was I reading it? But I was reading it. I think it was in a commentary. Maybe it was a Vishwanath commentary, or it was a Srila Prabhupada commentary, and the explanation was going on that first you'll think of this, and then you'll think of this, and then you'll think of this, and then you'll think of that. It all unfolds in the mature stage. Yes, Lakshmi Moni, and then Purva Kamalini. You need to unmute, Mataji.
I think Kamalini was first, so let her say whatever.
Okay.
And then we have all of the meanings of the Maha Mantra by the Acharyas, which are written many different places, but here in Mahanidhi Swami's The Art of Chanting Hare Krishna, he says how there are kind of translations by different devotees, different acharyas. And so like, let's see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gopal, let's see, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopal Guru, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. So they all have, like, every single word kind of a prayer. That's just another, without going into it, unless you wanted me to, but that's also another idea. And it says how each devotee will develop a personal conception of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra based on the instructions of his spiritual master and his own realizations. So there's also all of these translations where every word is a prayer. And even like Hare, the Hare at each different point is a different prayer, and the Krishna and the Rama. Anyway, just to mention that. So it seems like it's very expansive as our consciousness expands, or our appreciation or our connection, we could say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
For a very neophyte person who's just mechanical, I'm supposed to chant this mantra this many times, so I do it. The advanced devotee, there's love. Lakshmi Moni?
That was actually the last thing that Kamalini Devi said, was what I was also going to say, is that each devotee ultimately has their own relationship with Krishna, which will become manifest or becomes manifest at various stages of his progress or her progress in spiritual life. And so, to try to lock in or define the relationship for one person or for everybody is not possible, because everybody has their own loving relationship with Krishna in a unique way. And that is going to become manifest as that relationship with the holy name develops.
Yeah, thank you. Even you reminded me, when I was first hearing Prabhupada chanting, I noticed that each time he chanted the mantra, it was different. Every time you chant, there's like a different feeling, there's a different realization. It's not a recording. I think partly that realization is impeded by the perpetual mantra box, where you get like a 30-second loop repeated again and again. But when you listen to Prabhupada's whole kirtan, you appreciate even more how each mantra is a calling out to Krishna, and there's something different each time. Or each time we chant, there's something unique. This has been quoted by Prabeen. A long-haired girl sitting close to Swami's dais raised her hand and asked, seemingly in trance, "When I'm chanting, I feel a great concentration of energy on my forehead, and then a buzzing comes and a reddish light. And just keep on chanting," Swamiji replied. "It will clear up." And he says, "Well, what does the chanting produce?" She seemed to be coming out of her trance now. Chanting produces chanting, he replied. This is probably Lamrita. Yeah. Okay. Anything more on this? Anyone like to contribute or take it? Yes. Yes. Shama.
What if you have more attraction for reading than chanting? I mean, like personally, you know, the cards you can increase your rounds or you do that. But if I were to told, okay, well, you know, you can increase your reading and focus on that because we know there are 9 different processes, but still chanting is very important. So what to do when the attraction is more towards hearing and reading and not so much towards japa, increasing japa.
What to do when the attraction is more toward reading and hearing than toward japa and increasing japa? Well, count your blessings. If you're attracted to reading, how wonderful. Go on reading. As you said, there's 9 processes of devotional service. Someone wants to hear, someone wants to chant, someone wants to serve. So there's different engagements. The main thing is to be engaged. And if, you know, I can't imagine Prabhupada complaining, oh, this girl, she just wants to read my books. She doesn't want to chant more. She just sits with my books all the time. I mean, it's so wonderful. It's a blessing. Go on reading.
Because somebody, I can't remember, I asked this question to Maharaj and he said, well, reading should produce more desire for chanting. But that doesn't happen in my case.
All these engagements are absolute. So everything will come. And it's not that you say, well, no, you know, I'm only chanting 16 rounds. I should be chanting 20 or 25 or, you know, 50 or 75. It's just wonderful if you think I just want to go on reading and reading, go on reading and reading. How wonderful.
Thank you.
Apurva Prabhu and Kamalini.
Hare Krishna. It sounds almost like you're giving permission. Do you mean really I can read and I don't have to chant? Because we took a vow to chant, but we didn't take a vow exactly to read, although I know some gurus do have their disciples take an initiation vow. I know my daughter always tells me, too bad you couldn't just have like say we spend 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, you know, we spend at least 5 hours a day in sadhana. Like, too bad you couldn't have, okay, everyone has to spend 5 hours and however you want, kirtan, japa, reading, studying, you know, but it's not like that because we have a vow to chant 16 rounds. But I also so much wish that I can read instead of chant because I don't take the time too much to read. But so I know you're not giving permission, but you're saying do both, right? Chant 16 rounds and do the other service that you get the most inspiration from, more or less. Is that what you're saying?
Well, certainly I'm not saying to anyone, well, if you want to chant less than 16 rounds, that's okay, as long as you're reading or something. I don't have that authority. But yes, everyone has a taste. Someone likes to read more, someone likes to chant more. And certainly we shouldn't neglect the chanting or the reading. At least some reading should be there, some chanting should be there, minimum, at least the minimum. But then beyond that, if you want to read more, you want to do more pujari seva, you want to do, you know, whatever is there, the sadhana should be strong and our seva should be strong. Those things are there, but there's no stricture that I know of. No, you have to chant, you can't read. First things first, you have to chant more. Then you can think about reading more. It's open. Srila Prabhupada never prescribed that, no, you have to first chant more, then you'll be allowed to read more. Do what you like and be happy in Krishna consciousness. And really count yourself blessed because there are devotees who really don't have a taste for reading. They just don't like to pick up a book and read. So if you like to read, count yourself lucky, and then you can also teach. You can share what you've read. So that's like Shravanam, Kirtanam. Probably because I was enthusiastic about hearing, now I'm enthusiastic about chanting or preaching. So count yourself fortunate, and Hare Krishna. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, two things. I'm going to mute you because I'm too echoey here. Isn't it, I mean, in some ways I think of reading or preaching or kirtan. I mean, kirtan is chanting Hare Krishna, and I'm thinking of the devotee Caitanya Prabhu, who was so busy cooking, but he was always doing kirtan, and Prabhupada said he didn't have to do japa, right? He could just chant while he was doing his service, and that was okay. But then I think about something like, you know, if you're in kirtan, well, that's chanting, that's obvious. But even reading, when you're reading, you're hearing in your mind what you're reading, and you're sort of speaking to yourself what you're reading. So it seems like that's almost like a kind of kirtan. You're because the words, at least for me, when I read, I hear in my mind the words that are being said. So I'm both speaking them and hearing them. So I'm not looking for a dispensation from japa, but I'm just, can you think of it in that way, that reading is also a sort of kirtanam?
Reading is more, seems to me, falls more into Shravanam than Kirtanam. If you repeat what you've read, then it's Kirtanam. Otherwise, it's Shravanam. You're saying that you hear the words, so that's Shravanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam. But however you categorize it, this is all the absolute transcendental engagement. To be engaged with the books, to be engaged with the sound of Krishna's holy name. This is all what nourishes us. To be engaged in the service of the deity, to be engaged in the Pancharatriki activities. This gives us spiritual strength and spiritual inspiration. And it becomes advanced devotional service. In the advanced stage, one isn't just dressing the deity, one is directly serving Krishna. He understands I'm directly serving Krishna. Chanting the holy name in the advanced stage, one is directly coming in touch with Krishna. So in the beginning, these are all regulative activities. And by acting enthusiastically, engaging enthusiastically in these regulative activities, one comes to the advanced stage. And at the same time, side by side preaching. So everything is there.
Thank you.
Some devotees like to say it's all in the mantra, which it is. Since we're at 7:32, shall we read from Chaitanya Caritamrta? Let us begin. Chapter 1. I'm skipping the introduction, jumping right into the text. The spiritual masters. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna. He is the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami are the two principal followers of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, who acted as the most confidential servitor of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Vishwambhar in his early life. A direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami was Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, stands as the direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And he repeats that at the end of every chapter. The direct disciple of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti as his servitor. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who in turn accepted Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the divine master of our humble self. Since you can think, the scholars can write their Chaitanya Caritamrta, but they could never begin this way. They don't have that qualification. Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of food originally eaten by the Lord himself. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of the three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane, beyond the reach of the imperfect sense perception of a living being. Even the most erudite mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to transcendental sound with a receptive mood. For in that mood only can one realize the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What will be described herein, therefore, has nothing to do with the experimental thoughts created by the speculative habits of inert minds. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction, but a factual spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. Any deviation from that line will bewilder the reader's understanding of the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, which is a transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all the Vedic literatures, such as the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra, and their natural commentaries, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So wonderfully, Srila Prabhupada situates his book on the transcendental platform. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of the three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane, beyond the reach of the imperfect sense perception of a living being. So this whole book is going to be situated on that transcendental plane as understood through the Parampara system. And therefore, as Prabhupada said, it will be not a mental concoction, but a factual spiritual experience. When Srila Prabhupada wrote Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, he gave the subtitle, A Treatise on Factual Spiritual Life. Treatise on Factual Spiritual Life. That's the distinction of Srila Prabhupada's presentation. It's not just a scholarly study or a speculative romp, but it's an opportunity for transcendental spiritual experience, factual spiritual experience. And for that, one has to submit oneself to transcendental sound with a receptive mood. As speculators, we're the master and the book is the subject. We're the master and the book is the subject. But in the way Srila Prabhupada describes it, the book is the master and we're the the subjects. Krishna is the master. He's not different from the book. And we're the servants of Krishna. So we have to approach Chaitanya Charitamrita submissively in a service mood. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Then we may be able to understand something of this transcendental literature by following strictly in the parampara system. It's wonderful how deep these words are of Srila Prabhupada. So immediately placing Chaitanya Charitamrita within the context of devotional service, pure devotional service, pure spiritual existence. That's the platform. This edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is presented for the study of sincere scholars who are really seeking the absolute truth. It's not academic scholars who are just looking for something fascinating to study, but sincere scholars who are sincerely seeking the absolute truth. That's who this edition is for. There may be other editions for other people, but this is for that. It's not the arrogant scholarship of a mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of the superior authority, whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures, and therefore anyone who follows in the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. There are other editions written by learned scholars. They're nothing like this. And those books will be appreciated by those who have an academic interest. But those who want to realize the essence of the book, for them, this edition is intended. The first chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with 14 Sanskrit verses that describe the absolute truth. Then the next 3 Sanskrit verses describe the principal deities of Vrindavan, namely Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govinda Dev, and Sri Radha Gopinath Ji. The first of the 14 verses is a symbolic representation of the supreme truth. Words are symbols. They stand for something. So the first of the 14 verses is a symbolic representation of the supreme truth. And the entire first chapter is in actuality devoted to this single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 different transcendental expansions. The first manifestation described is the spiritual master, who appears in 2 plenary parts called the initiating spiritual master and instructing spiritual master. They are identical because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. Okay, let me just. Next described are the devotees, who are divided into 2 classes, namely the apprentices and the graduates. Next are the incarnations, avatars of the Lord, who are explained to be non-different from the Lord. These incarnations are considered in three divisions: incarnations of the potency of the Lord, incarnations of his qualities, and incarnations of his authority. In this connection, Lord Sri Krishna's direct manifestations and his manifestations for transcendental pastimes are discussed. Next considered are the potencies of the Lord, of which three principal manifestations are described: the consorts in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, the queens of Dwarkatam, and highest of all, the damsels of Brajatam. Finally, there's the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. Lord Sri Krishna and his plenary expansions are all in the category of the Lord himself, the energetic absolute truth, whereas his devotees, his eternal associates, are his energies. The energy and energetic are fundamentally one, but since their functions are differently exhibited, they are simultaneously different also. When we see the Panchatattva on Mahaprabhu's right, there's Srivas Thakur and Gadadhar. So they're energies of the Lord. And on his left, Nityananda Prabhu. Yeah, our left, his left, as we're seeing. Nityananda Prabhu is there. Advaita Prabhu is there. They're energetic expansions of the Lord. They're the energetic. The energy and energetic are fundamentally one, but since their functions are differently exhibited, they're simultaneously different also. Thus, the absolute truth is manifested in diversity, in one unit. This philosophical truth, which is pursuant to the Vedanta Sutras, is called Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva, or the conception of simultaneous oneness and difference. In the latter portion of this chapter, the transcendental position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and that of Srila Nityananda Prabhu are described with reference to the above theistic facts. So these are Srila Prabhupada's opening remarks. Praveen, rather Venkatesh, no, Praveen, because the chat box has moved on. Hold on 1 second, let me get Praveen's question. I see the chat box has moved on. Praveen asks, when did Srila Prabhupada start translating Chaitanya Charitamrta? How long did it take to complete? Were you the editor? Srila Prabhupada began Chaitanya Charitamrta in India, and he published a portion in Back to Godhead. If I recall properly, the first 6 chapters were already done before Prabhupada came to America. And if I recall, we worked from what was published in his Back to Godhead, and there was also a longhand manuscript written out. And the manuscript covered some of the same material or some of the same texts that were there in the Back to Godhead. There's something Chaitanya Charitamrta essays and text So there was a manuscript, at least one, maybe two, but I think one, but maybe two. And there was the articles published in, or the translation and commentary published in Back to Godhead. This went up through chapter 6. And yes, I was the editor for the Adi Lila and the Antya Lila, main editor for Adi and the Antya. Ayagriva Prabhu was the main editor for Madhya Lila, and I did some follow-up work behind Ayagriva Prabhu, but he was the main editor for that, particularly since we had to do everything Madhya Lila and Antya Lila in 2 months. So Ayagriva Prabhu was engaged. The 7th chapter is where Srila Prabhupada began his further, or we could say his usual pattern of translating by dictating. And he began that after ISKCON was going. And it was, I'm bad on years, but once he started that, we started publishing what he'd written first in that book. I guess it was called Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features. Chapter 7 rather, was published as a separate paperback volume. So that was the first, that was the first publishing of Chaitanya Caritamrta in the West. And Srila Prabhupada said we should distribute it to all the Mayavadis, all the Mayavadi, gurus. That's mentioned also in Giriraj Maharaj's book, that there was some particular Mayavadi that Srila Prabhupada was engaging with, and he instructed that he should receive a copy of Chaitanya Caritamrta. And I believe I read that he said it should be distributed to, so many Mayavadi teachers. So the first 6 chapters, therefore, are Prabhupada's writing, and the remainder of the book is his speaking. And of course, it's absolute, so there's no difference between his writing and his speaking. And yet there's a different quality when we read Srila Prabhupada's writing. And there's just by the nature of the process, the writing and the speaking are different. And I'm especially a fan of his writing. The writing has a special flavor to it, but again, they're absolute. How long did it take to complete? Well, you can do that research yourself. The Prabhupada gives the date of completion, the Rama Ekadasi of what year was that? 1975, something like that. And we just need the start date, for which you could rely on me if I had a memory, but I'm sorry about that. But if you look at, well, that's not even a fair way to do it. I think he even mentions, now that I think about it, if you look in that afterword, the concluding words of Chaitanya Caritamrta, Prabhupada himself says how long it took. So we began it, at such and such time, and now it's finished. If you find that there, then you can answer the question. Is that all right? Okay. We can read a little more, the first verse. We may not cover the full territory, but let's see. Bande Gurun Isha Bhaktan Isham Ishavatarakan Tat Prakashanscha Tat Shaktihi Krishna Chaitanya Sangakam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So Gurun, spiritual masters, in plural. Isha Bhaktan, the devotees of the Lord. Isha Avatarakan, Isham, the Supreme Lord. Isha Avatarakan, his avatars. Tat Prakashamscha, his manifestations. And Tat Shakti, his energies. So all of these are non-different from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaurodadye Pushpavanto Chitro Shanto Tamonudo. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Yada dvaitam brahmo panishadi tadapyasya tanubha ya atmantar yami purushoiti sosyam sa vibhavaha sarashvaryai purno yahiha bhagavan sa swayammayam na chaitanyat krishnad jagati paratatvam parammiha. What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahma is but the effulgence of his body. And the Lord, known as the Supersoul, is but his localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. Anarpita charim chirat karuna yavatirno kalo karuna yavatirna kalo samarpayitum unnatod valavrasam svabhakti shriyam Hari Purita Sundara Tuti Kandamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaya Kandare Spuritu Va Sachinandanaha. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold. He has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti Rasmad Ekatmana Vapibhuvi Pura Dehi Pedam Gatotao Chaitanyakam Prakatam Adhuna Tadvayam Chaikyamaptam Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they separated themselves. Now these 2 transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Varnayaiva Svadyo Yenad Bhuta Madhurima Kidrisho Va Madhya Saukyam Chasya Mad Anubhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobhat Tadpavadya Samajani Shachigarbha Sindhu Shachigarbha Sindho Harinduhu. Desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love, the wonderful qualities in him that she alone relishes through her love, and the happiness she feels when she realizes the sweetness of his love. The Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appeared from the womb of Srimati Shachi Devi as the moon appeared from the ocean. So we'll stop here. All of these verses will be elaborated later in the chapter by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Kaviraj Goswami himself. And these are the concluding words of the Chaitanya Charitamrta. So we're just beginning, as Srila Prabhupada himself just began. But here's what he wrote when he finished. Today, Sunday, November 10th, 1974, corresponding to the 10th of Kartik, Chaitanya era 488, the 7th day of the dark fortnight, the Ram Ekadashi. We have now finished the English translation of Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, in accordance with the authorized order of His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, my beloved, eternal, spiritual master, guide, and friend. Although according to material vision, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada passed away from this material world on the last day of December 1936, I still consider His Divine Grace to be always present with me by His Vani, His words. So thank you all again. And I think we'll continue in this format, reading Chaitanya Charitamrta only one day a week. So it will take us quite some time. And we won't be in a hurry. We'll read and try to understand carefully. And we'll be flexible so that if there are questions about other topics, you'll be free to raise them. And the preface, Praveen says, Prabhupada says Om Tat Sat, March 4th, 1968. But that's not when Srila Prabhupada began this dictation. That was later. That must have been later. And somebody, anyway, it would have been later. But Prabhupada, we can see that Srila Prabhupada had in mind this from even before he came to America, he had in mind to present this great work in English, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, and he did it. So I think we'll stop here, and with thanks to all. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. We were delighted to have Mitra Sen Prabhu join us for part of this. He normally has a Zoom class that he conducts every evening, but his stopped a little early. And he's been staying with us, and we've been blessed to have his association here during the Festival of the Holy Name.
How wonderful obeisances to Mitra Sen. Everybody's waving here to.
Krishna.
And
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
The concluding words, when you continue reading on, it sounds like Prabhupada began it when he first met Bhaktisiddhanta in 1922. That's kind of what he's saying. Bhaktisiddhanta said, you should preach Lord Chaitanya's message. And so he says, I've done it and it's been successful to some extent. And he ties the Caitanya Charitamrta to that first order that he got in 1922. So we could say it started in 1922.
Right. The seed was planted.
And regarding Prabhupada's writing compared to his dictation, I feel the same. His writing is really special. First canto, second canto. But then recently we just read 10th canto up to the end of chapter 13. And that is like, wow. It was like, oh man, couldn't we get more of this? He's really come to a whole different platform in that last, especially that last chapter. Especially chapter 13, text 53. We went over that a few times. Because that's the one where we see you in the video holding the microphone. That's text 53. Everything is acting, moving by the supreme direction of Krishna. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. It seems like a simple statement, but when you read the whole purport, he's talking about, it's very complex. It's a very sophisticated purport, and he's not holding anything back in his description.
How wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
That's a lot.
All right.
Right?
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Guru Maharaj. Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Arjuna.
I will look forward very much to these sessions. Thank you.
Haribol.
Sorry, Haribol, Haribol.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
We never get to be projected.
Jai Maharaj, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.